to be so good because today's guest, our 6 p.m. guest today is Kassandra Vaughn, and we've known each other for years and we haven't talked in forever. We got on here 10 minutes early, and let me tell you, I started talking, she started talking, and the next thing I know, I was like, oh my God, we're late. Thank you so much for being here. I am Michelle Talbert. This is our second meeting of the day of the Unchamber. Every second, what day is this? Wednesday. Oh my God. Every second Wednesday of the month, we host a 1 p.m. Eastern and a 6 p.m. Eastern class, presentation, talk to bring you value for your small business. Earlier today, I don't know if you caught it, but Mimi Peace dropped so much knowledge and so many gems and walked us through how to really leverage Canva for our success in our business. Like, who knew Canva could do QR codes? Who knew Canva could do websites and self-guided learning and all of that? And she took us through step by step. Like, that is definitely one of the meetings you're going to want to refer to frequently. And the way to do that is to be a member of the Unchamber community. I go live on my on my personal page, and I go live in a couple of other places. But the only place that you're able to access this after our original day of going live is if you become a member of the Unchamber, which is a community of entrepreneurs, side hustlers, solopreneurs that I started during the pandemic so that we would have an opportunity to have a place to share about our businesses, to share what we were going through as Black-owned businesses, Black-owned women, Black women-owned businesses, etc., especially in 2020. So, without further ado, for tonight, we are talking to any authors in the house. Like, if you're an author, whether you're published or unpublished, because I'm going to claim it for you and call you an author, whether or not you're published yet. We are talking to Kassandra Vaughn, who I'm going to bring on the screen and let you learn a little bit more about her. And she is going to really rock our worlds, because I know this lady.
Hello.
Kassandra!
Hello. I'm so happy to be here, excited to be here.
Yes, Karen Proctor, you are an author. That is so awesome. As a matter of fact, drop a link to your book in the chat. We want to be able to support anyone who's watching, even if you're watching the replay. So please drop your book links in the chat so we can check them out. That is how we all win. I am Michelle Talbert, the founder of Her Power Moves, the Unchamber, and Her Power Space, the Woman Forward Men Welcoming co-working space here in Broward County, South Florida. I am so excited to bring Kassandra Vaughn on. We have known each other like 6-7 years, which is why we ended up talking and being late to start.
We got a lot of catching up to do.
We had so much catching up to do. Kassandra Vaughn and I met because we were both sort of, I don't want to speak for you. I was searching for community. I was searching for information to help leverage my business. And it was like right before Periscope hit and all of that. So about 6 years ago, and we found ourselves in this very large community that was run by, we'll just say, a bro. And we forged amazing connections. You guys can walk behind me. It's okay. This is a working co-working space. We got podcasters coming in for their 6 o'clock recording. We're not the only ones who were late recording tonight, okay? So we bonded. And so Brandy Butler, Tangia Renee, Kassandra Vaughn, there were so many of us. And this is why community is important. Although we no longer affiliate with that person that I'm not naming, we connected and we have supported each other. And let me tell you, still on my iPad to this day, I have a number of the almost 30 books, y'all, that Kassandra Vaughn has written. Okay, I have taken her courses, I have learned from her, and I'm going to do her formal bio instead of gushing all over her so you can get some really good information. Kassandra Vaughn is the CEO of SK Media, which is a personal development multimedia firm that provides education and training on emotional intelligence. And that I must say, you are definitely have a high EQ, mindset, and grit. She is the author of almost 30 books, and her mission is simple: to equip individuals and organizations with the mindset necessary to create powerful results through intention, collaboration, and purpose-driven daily massive action. And let me tell you, she has helped me author books and ebooks and shorter form books for me that I have done using her methods. Kassandra, thank you for being here.
I am so excited. I'm glad we get to connect, and I'm also glad that I get to share some of the things that I learned the hard way so folks can learn it the easy way in terms of publishing and online courses.
I love that. I love that so much. So I am going to hop off. Everyone who is here, if you're watching in the replay, if you are watching live, please be sure to put your comments, drop your comments. Karen, I see you dropped your book. Awesome. So I'm definitely going to come back and check out that link. And if you give permission to StreamYard so that it can show your name, we will be able to comment to you. You can drop your Q&As as we go along. Kassandra, the floor is yours. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right. So I am so looking forward to going over information tonight. Before I go ahead and share my screen and walk through the slide deck, I do want to give you an idea of what we're going to do tonight. So I want to focus this time on really walking you through the power of leveraging self-publishing and the creation of online courses to grow your brand and to build your business. There are a lot of facets to that. So I would say, please be sure you have a notebook and pen. You're going to have those aha moments. You're going to have those moments you're like, oh, I need to do that, or oh, I need to do that. Be sure that you are jotting down notes and things that apply directly to your business as we go through the content. I'm also going to share with you in tonight's presentation a lot of the things that I learned the hard way. There are great gurus out there who will teach you self-publishing A to Z, who will teach you online course creation, digital course creation. There's a lot they leave out though. There's a lot that they don't tell you. So I'm going to bring to the table tonight a lot of the things that are pretty important to know as you go on this journey with either self-publishing, online course creation, or both, and giving you the real deal so you understand what you're committing to and also what it requires to do that DMA, or that daily massive action. So that is what we're going to talk about. Let me start by sharing my screen, and then I will do Q&A afterwards. So let me begin with that. We're going to go on screen 2. And hopefully everybody's able to see my second screen. You are able to see what we're going to talk about tonight. And please jot down questions that you have, because once I finish this presentation, I would like to open the floor for questions that are specific to your needs, specific to your business, so we can do some troubleshooting, some strategizing, and you can walk away with strategies that are personalized to you. So tonight, what I'd like to talk about is the power of publishing and online course creation, how to leverage publishing and online course creation to build your brand. You will spend a lifetime building your brand. Your brand will change over the course of a lifetime, but the building of the brand requires consistent DMA, daily massive action. So what we're going to talk about in today's session are the following. Number one, I'm going to spend some time talking about what self-publishing can do for your brand. We live in a world where there are so many things you could do for your brand. You could do TikTok, you could do YouTube, you could do IGTV, you could do Facebook posts, you could do, emails, send out daily emails, you could do podcasting. With all the choices that you have, I do want to talk about what are the unique advantages that come with self-publishing and what that can actually do for your brand. And then secondly, I want to talk about the 5 keys to building your writer's platform, because it's not simply about the writing and publishing of a book. For me, the writing is the fun part, but most of the work happens after the book is published. So I'm going to talk about What are those keys to building your writer's platform? And then third, I'm going to talk about understanding the online course marketplace and what it can do for your business. Lots of people think that self-publishing and online course creation are separate, but very much they align and they go hand in hand. So I'm going to talk about the connections between publishing a book, building a course based on the book, how do you put it out in the online marketplace, and then I'm going to talk about how do you understand what's out there and what to do and how to really leverage that strategically for your business. And then I also want to talk about 5 considerations for creating online courses. These are things I wish someone had told me before I started creating online courses. I do have a background as an instructional designer, so I've got a master's degree in instructional design, which makes online course creation easier than someone who doesn't have an MED, but still, there are lessons I'm going to share tonight that I wish someone had told me when I began that journey years ago. And then 5, I want to go through some final thoughts. So that is the agenda. Now, Michelle did an amazing job giving you some intro about me. Some things that you may not know about me. So I am on I believe in the long game, not the short game. We play the long game to win. Short games don't win. And part of my long game is to do what I call and what I tell all my coaching clients, the 52, 52, 52. So in the next 3 years, I want to have 52 books published on Amazon, 52 online courses on the Skillshare market, and then 52 courses on the Udemy market. Some of those on the Skillshare and Udemy will be the same. Some will be different courses. So my goal for the next 3 or so years is accomplishing the 52, 52, 52. I'll tell you as we go along this presentation why that's important. I've created so far, written 29 books, over 20 online courses I've created and built and sold either personally on my website or on Skillshare and Udemy. I'm a mindset coach by trade. My firm really focuses on creating emotional intelligence training, a lot of which is virtual. I am a speaker, and I am also the first American born in between my parents. My parents are from Haiti originally, so they immigrated to this country when they were teenagers. And I always say it was a gift that I was born here, understanding the sacrifice that they gave in leaving a country that they loved to come to a country they had no idea what to expect from. So that is always the bit of gratitude that I like to share about that. I live in a small town in Pinedale, Wyoming. I know Wyoming is a strange place. 2,000 people in the winter when it snows a lot, which it does here, and it gets to negative 30 degrees. They don't plow the snow. They just put gates down and you can't leave town. So, and Walmart's an hour and a half away, Target's 4 hours away, and a hospital is an hour and a half away. Just to give you a sense of the solitude that I live in, which actually works pretty well for writing books. So that's some tidbit about me. Now, let's jump into this. What self-publishing can do for your brand. And again, as I talk through this material, as you start to have questions, jot them down because I'm going to leave plenty of time at the end to answer questions and to really strategize with you. But let me start by saying I remember when I wrote my first book, and it was a book about infertility because I've been through secondary infertility. In my 20s, I went through it. And I wrote a book called Conceiving by Faith. And back in the day when you would write books, this was like, let's see, my middle son was born in 2004. So this must have been like 2002, 2001 when I wrote this first book. You couldn't do what you can do today. In 2001, you had to actually find a publisher. And when I mean a publisher, a printer, you had to type up your book and your manuscript. You had to send them the manuscript. You had to send them the cover art. And then you had to order a minimum number of books, usually in the thousands. So the first time that I wrote a book, I did it the old school way. So literally there was no Amazon then. It was just spend thousands of dollars with a printer, send them your stuff. They send you boxes of books, which then sits in your garage, and you try to figure out how to sell them. That was my first experience writing a book. As time went on and the advent of Amazon happened and Amazon KDP and then Audible, well, self-publishing opened up a whole new world, not only for me, but for all of the authors out there who felt really constrained by the idea that there were only 5 to 10 major publishing houses, all in New York City, who could make or break your ability to be a published author. And then there's this whole other game of working with literary agents and getting an agent, and then the agent takes 10%, and then the publishing company only gives you a royalty of 6 to 7%. Amazon changed the landscape of publishing for authors around the globe. So let's talk about for a minute, given that context and that historical background, what self-publishing can do for your brand. So let me just give you a few stats about self-publishing. So on Amazon's Kindle store, self-published books represent over 30% of ebook sales. Even bigger than that, those 5 big traditional publishers that I was mentioning before, the Random House, the Penguin, the HarperCollins of the world, they actually account for less than 16% of the ebooks on Amazon's bestseller list. I'm not going to go down a rabbit hole of bestseller list stuff, but I will just say, I always had a goal of being a New York Times bestseller until I figured out the racket that is, and it's still a goal, but that is not revenue producing over the long term. So if one of your goals is I want to be a New York Times bestseller, do it because you want the accolade, but understand that that is a distinctly separate approach than what you're doing to create passive, consistent monthly revenue from books that you publish on Amazon. 2 different pathways. You can do both, but 2 different pathways. So again, for those big publishers, they account for less than 16% of the ebooks on Amazon's bestseller list. Nonfiction books tend to earn more than fiction books. So if you are a fiction writer, it's always important to keep in mind that what a lot of people are looking for today are nonfiction books that teach them how to do things, how to solve problems, and not how to solve 50 problems. Most people have an attention span that is not conducive to a 600-page book or even a 300-page book, which is why the short form book, so literally something that is about 90 pages, 100, 120 pages, is really the ideal page count that you want for a book, because even with 300 pages, a lot of people just tune it out after page 75. So nonfiction does better than fiction. And there are some marketing strategies that come along with self-publishing that you really want to seize and take hold of, namely pre-orders. Massively easy to do on Amazon KDP and very well worth it. Also free book periods that as long as your book is enrolled in KDP Select, you can also do through Amazon. So there are lots of strategies for marketing your book, especially through Amazon, that work out so well at the end of the day and produce more in terms of revenue than if you went with a traditional publisher who's only giving you 7% royalty, if even 7%. So let's talk about what does self-publishing do. So let me take a step back. When I say self-publishing, what I mean is you are literally using either a specific ebook software program to write your book, or you can use Microsoft Word. Microsoft Word works just as well as the more expensive ebook writing software. You are writing the book. You may hire or outsource an editor. You may hire a graphic designer to do your book cover, but you could also use Canva. So having that Canva session and watching and the replay of that Canva session is super important, because I create most of my ebook covers using Canva. And it's very easy to use, much easier than something like Photoshop. And there have also been times when I've paid a graphic designer $300 to $400 per book cover to create those things for me. There are benefits to doing both. I think it's important as a self-published author, you should learn how to create a basic ebook cover. So if you're ever in a pinch and your graphic designer can't produce, you can do it yourself. But I also love the route of having a graphic designer that I trust, that gets my style, that can produce a series of book covers for me before I even write the books. So that stuff is ready to go when I'm ready to hit publish. So self-publishing is really doing everything from the creation of the book title and subtitle, through the writing of it, through the editing of it, through the book cover design, all the way up to uploading the manuscript and the book cover onto Amazon KDP, publishing it, and then of course the marketing of the book. So self-publishing is all of those steps from A to Z. Now, why would you do self-publishing? There are lots of people say, I would just rather have an agent. I don't care if I pay them 10%. They will sell the book, and then they will get me with Random House, and then Random House will do all the sales for me. Here's why you'd self-publish. Even when you sign with a literary agent and you sign with Random House, they're not selling the book for you. They're giving you some opportunities, but especially when you're new to their roster, they're not going to put you on across the country, across the world, get you on the Today Show. When you are newly under a major publisher's roster, they're still going to tell you to go out and hustle. They want you to get the local television gigs. They want you to get on podcasts. They want you to be on YouTube and TikTok and Instagram. They still are going to have you do all the marketing stuff that you would be doing on your own as a self-publisher. And you are going to get an advance. It could be small, it could be big, but that is based on you making sure you make enough in sales to recoup the advance they give you. And from there, you get 6 to 7%, if you're lucky, royalty for every book sold. Now, when you self-publish on Amazon, you get up to 70% of every book sold. Big revenue difference. And you're still, especially when you're early on in your writing career, doing the same hustle with the marketing and the PR and the promotion. So self-publishing really allows a business owner to increase their visibility and credibility. You have no idea how often the reason somebody gets a spot on TV, whether local or national, is simply because they wrote a book and the people who were also being considered did not write a book. So when you have a book under your belt, it automatically gives you credibility. It gives you increased visibility. It's something tangible. It's something that you could send if you want to speak at a conference. It is like a really amazing business or calling card that is in digital, on Audible, and also you keep copies in your briefcase. So whenever you're out and about, you can give somebody a free copy so they get to know your work. So for sure, it increases visibility and credibility. It also, in terms of self-publishing, it provides a foundation for creating a writer's platform. So as a business owner, you know there are certain things that are the core of building your business. Building an email list, core. It is essential to making money. Well, a writer's platform helps you to get your work out into the world, helps people to know you as an expert in a certain area. And then it also builds people who become raving, loyal fans of your work. And so it also serves to help build that email list, because when somebody reads your book, in the back of your book, you indicate, you can get this freebie and that freebie, and you can sign up for this. And they sign up to your email list by reading the book. So it certainly creates the foundation for creating your writer's platform. It also increases opportunities to build your email list. I would say one of the biggest advantages that I found in having 29 books published is that I am on a daily basis getting new email subscribers without having to do anything. Like I wrote the book, put it on Audible. Sometimes I might get an email from somebody who read it and said, what's the link? Because I can't download the free gift. But I am constantly getting new email subscribers because of a book I wrote 5 years ago, or 3 years ago, or 2 years ago. So again, self-publishing allows you to successfully build an email list long after you've published that book. And then self-publishing also provides an additional revenue stream. Now, to go back to that whole goal of 52, 52, 52, here's something I wish somebody would have told me. And I had one mentor who told me this, but a lot of people try to sell self-publishing like, you could write 3 books and then you're making, $10,000 a month from your ebook revenue. Here's the real deal. You need to figure out for your books, what is the niche, the arena, or the area that you want to focus in on. And then you need to write a lot of books on that specific area. And then as you write each of those books, you've got to refer to a different book in the book so that it's basically creating a sales funnel through all of your books. So one book leads to the other, leads to the other. And then once you've got, I would say probably in the ballpark of 20 to 50 books, that's when you start to see the thousands a month in passive income that you don't have to hustle marketing all the time for. But I know a lot of people who want to write 3 books and think that's going to happen. And the reality is it's not going to happen with 3 books. 20 maybe, 30 maybe, 40 to 60 probably, and anywhere 60 to 80, yes, you're talking about thousands a month. Once you've built up a whole catalog of books in a particular arena, and it takes some time to figure out which is the right niche or the right arena. So again, there's experimentation that happens with that. So it also gives you an additional revenue stream. Now, let's talk about the 5 keys to building your writer's platform. There are 5 keys to this. Number 1, so it's what I just said, know your niche. This is a hard one. So I will tell you, I've written 29 books. When I started, I was writing about how do you overcome fear? How do you turn fear into fuel? I wrote 5 or 6 books about that. And then I was drawn to other arenas. Out of the 29 books that I've written, the most popular book is a book that I wrote kind of by accident because I'm a coach by trade. And I wrote a book called The Ultimate Guide to Coaching Questions. That one book, The Ultimate Guide to Coaching Questions, does, I would say, probably 1,000% better than all other 28 books combined. Now, I still write on other topics, but now that it took me 29 books to find the right niche, now I'm going to begin to write more books on coaching because I see that A, there's a need for that. B, I have expertise in that. And C, that is what people want because that book does better than all the other 28 combined. So it does take you time to figure out your niche. What I would recommend you do is start to write down or jot down, what are the 3 things that I love to teach, to talk about, to train to? What is the core mission of my business? What am I an expert in? And just write, what are those top 3 niches that you'd like to be in? Figure out which one you want to write a book on first and just see how they do. You have to commit, get it done, put it out there, give it time, like 6 months to a year before you evaluate. And then over time, as you write books on different things, you'll start to see where the need actually is. So number 1, you've got to know your niche. Number 2, you've got to identify your commitment level. So, and you'll have to excuse me, I'm sweating a little bit here. I keep track of everything that is required for me to take a book from concept to Audible publication. So recording the audiobook is a whole other beast, aside from actually writing and publishing the book on Amazon. It typically takes me 60 hours from start to finish to write one 35,000 word book. I time it every single time. 60 hours. So when I say identify your commitment level, what I really mean is, are you willing, if you decide to go the self-publishing route, if you decide you want this to be a viable revenue stream in your business, one of many, hopefully, are you willing to carve out 60 hours per book for how many ever number of books you want to produce within a certain time frame? This is what I mean by commitment level. Because I have a lot of people send me a message like, Kassandra, you've written so many books. I want to write this one book and tell the story of my life. And my first question to them is, do you want to write the book as a hobby, or do you want the book to lead to a business? Because the two require 2 different commitment levels. So if you know it takes you about 60 hours, and I would say 60 to 80 hours to write a 35,000 word book, how many books would you need to write to create the level of passive income that you want? How many books per year do you want to write? And where are you scheduling in the 60 to 80 hours per book to do so, given running the rest of your business? So number 2, to building your writer's platform, you've got to identify your commitment level. Number 3, you've got to create a book title library. So let's say you say, you know what? I just want to be a writer. I want to make $20,000 a month from it. I'm willing to do whatever it takes. My commitment level is high. Now what you've got to do is, because you know that's not going to happen with just 5 books. You know you have to produce 20, 30, 40, 50, possibly 80 books so that it gets to the place where you have that book sales funnel. Now you've got to say, well, what are all the books that I'm going to create? Now, what a lot of people do is they write one book and then they say, well, what do I want to write next? And then they write the next book, which is totally unrelated to the first book. That is not a strategic way to create a book title library. What I like to do is sit down for the year, and I literally will create a spreadsheet. I love spreadsheets. And I will put all the books I'm going to release for 2021, or all the books I'm going to release for 2022. And the thing I'm looking for in my book title library for any specific year is, how are all of these books creating a sales funnel? a sales funnel for email subscribers, a sales funnel for new products I'm releasing that year, a sales funnel that's tied directly to a training program or a mastermind group. So there's a lot you've got to know to create this book title library. You have to know what you plan to sell this year. You have to know what the topic of whatever you plan to sell is, a mastermind, a group coaching program, one-on-one coaching. And then you have to create book titles that answer the questions of the problems for the people you plan to sell those higher end products to. And that's when you create your book titles and what you're going to publish for that specific year. So number 3, you got to create a book title library. Number 4, you've got to build a publishing schedule. So in a former life, I was an IT project manager. So I treat everything, exercise, eating, I treat everything like it's a project because I'm good at project management. As a self-published author, you've got to get good at project management. You need to treat yourself like you are Penguin, HarperCollins, or Random House. You literally have to say, I am my publisher. So when do I expect the writer part of me to write the manuscript, to edit the first draft, to produce the second draft, to produce the finalized manuscript, to get the book covers done, and what is my release date for this book? And you need to hold your feet to the fire on that. Building a publishing schedule will help to hold you accountable. Now, you got to be realistic about what you can produce. You know, some people say, well, I'm going to write 10,000 words a day. Well, how long does it take you to write 1,000 words? Is it really feasible to write 10,000 words a day? If you have a day job, is it feasible to do that? What does your realistic writing schedule look like? And how long does it take you to do the other pieces, the editing, the recording of the Audible? All of those things you've got to factor in as you create and build a publishing schedule. And again, for me, everything, including the Audible for a 35,000 word book, takes me 60 hours. So when I'm creating the publishing schedule for a brand new book, I know on my calendar, I have to figure out where are those 60 hours coming from and over how long will those 60 hours take. Number 5, you've got to play the long game with writing, release, and promotion. So lots of people think their job is done as an author when they've published the book. And really, the publishing, the writing was the fun part. The publishing was the necessary part. And now the real work begins with the promotion and the marketing. It is a long game. You will always be promoted. I had a session where I was talking to a mastermind group last week. And one of the coaching clients in the group said, which of your books would you recommend I read? And I had to think for a minute because I was like, there are 29 of them. I don't remember every single book, but you got to be ready to answer questions like that, to go on and solicit podcast interviews, to go on people's IGTV, to do interviews. You've got to play the long game and expect that the writing is the shortest piece of this puzzle. The release is just the necessary thing you've got to do, but 80% of your life as a writer will be spent on marketing, promotions, and sales. So that's really key. Now, we're going to bridge the gap for a minute because I do want to talk about this idea of understanding the online course marketplace. So I started writing books first, and then I got into online course creation because I did a master's in instructional design. And once I understood how do you create learning objectives? How do you build online courses? What is e-learning? Then I started to do my homework and I started to see that the online course marketplace was just beginning in like 2007, 2010, but it's going to boom. And in fact, this whole pandemic thing over the last year or so has also shown me that the online course marketplace has nowhere to go but up. So let's talk for a little bit about maybe you wrote a book that actually could become an amazing course. So why would you not, in addition to having the book published, build a course or courses off the book and the content of the book? And now you're making money off of the topic, not only in book form, not only in Audible form, but also as an online course or an online program. So let's look at some of the stats on that. So just to give you a feel for the online learning marketplace, it is expected that the online education market is going to be at $350 billion in revenue by 2025. And there are numerous online platforms. You've got places like Udemy and Skillshare and LinkedIn Learning, which used to be lynda.com, and Udacity and you've got so many smaller ones beyond these major ones that I've given you, that there are many places. And as you launch online courses, the up and comers, the new smaller ones, will actually send you emails saying, hey, we would love to feature your course on our platform. Would you be willing to upload it to us? Here's the revenue split. So this is not going anywhere. And the more we deal with pandemics, the more we deal with people being in their homes, the more we deal with generations of children who do not want to go and do face-to-face learning. Even as 8-year-olds, 15-year-olds, 22-year-olds, they are used to learning online. This market is going to explode, which means the need for training in an online marketplace is going to continue to go up. So you have corporations and universities doing deals with things like Udemy and Skillshare. So they're not bringing in physical trainers to train their people in a company. They're just signing a license with Udemy, and then they're having their employees go on Udemy and take those courses. So it is not going anywhere. So for example, Udemy has over 40 million learners with 70,000 instructors teaching 157,000 courses in more than 65 languages. Skillshare, which is younger than Udemy, but they're the two biggest. Skillshare has over 12 million registered users. So just imagine that you're creating a course and you're putting it on Udemy that has over 40 million learners. So 40 million potential clients, 40 million potential raving fans, 40 million potential email subscribers. And then you also put the course on Skillshare that has over 12 million potential clients, potential email subscribers. It is amazing at what the possibilities are for your business when you create something like an online course and you put it on Udemy and Skillshare. Now, if you think about it, with the pandemic, the daily views and time spent on Skillshare more than tripled during 2020 for them. So imagine what it is now, well, I won't say post-pandemic because we're still in it, but now that we're getting into a different place with the pandemic. The two biggest online course platforms, and if you were to say, Kassandra, what two platforms should I post online course content on first? Even more so than LinkedIn Learning, because LinkedIn Learning has you go through so many hoops just to become a teacher on LinkedIn Learning. I say that's a later platform, even though it has a wide reach. The first two I would start with are Skillshare and Udemy. Their revenue streams work a little differently. So Udemy will pay you a flat rate every time someone purchases a course. Skillshare actually pays you every single month based on the number of premium minutes that any learner has watched of any of your courses. So they pay differently, but once again, you can build one course and you can put it on both Skillshare and Udemy. So you're not building two separate courses. It's one course that you put on both platforms. And because their target markets are so different, you will certainly get different students on Skillshare who have memberships on Skillshare than you will see on Udemy, where there are a lot of corporations that have a Udemy license and then use those Udemy courses for training of their employees. So what online courses can do for your business? Let's talk about this quickly because I want to get to Q&A. As with the self-publishing route, online courses can help you build your email list. I have to tell you, the books have helped me build my email list, but nothing like the online courses have. I have no idea what that is specifically, but I will tell you, people will take my online courses. So they see me on video, they go through a whole course with me. It is not live, so all of that's pre-recorded content. So once I've created the course, which by the way, on average, to create a 5-hour Skillshare or Udemy course, it takes me, because I've timed this every single time, 40 hours from beginning, so building the concept, to creating the outline, to scripting all the videos, setting up learning objectives, recording it using my Canon camera, post-producing using Adobe Premiere, uploading to Skillshare and Udemy, and launching it. That's 40 hours for me per course. So it has helped me build my email list. I think at almost triple the rate of the books. And I think that's because people just build a relationship with you and you're teaching them in a whole course. It also increases revenue because once again, Skillshare pays you based on minutes watched. Udemy pays you a flat rate for each course that's purchased. So it increases your revenue in your business. So here's another revenue stream outside of, let's say, coaching, outside of your mastermind groups, outside of your retreats that you now can add in that becomes steady over time. And then it allows you to expand your authority and expertise. One of the things I did in my business this year was I got SAM verified. And for those of you who are familiar with federal contracts, SAM verification allows you to do federal bids and to get federal contracts. Well, one of the things when you're applying for federal contracts, once you're SAM verified, that those contracting organizations in the federal government look for is they look for your expertise. They want to see your YouTube channel. They want to see your social media, but they also want to see what other online courses have you built, because oftentimes what they're looking for in the bids is virtual training. So if you've created a bunch of courses on Skillshare and Udemy, when you put in a bid with the federal government and they say, hey, I want, coaching delivered virtually, now you've got this whole portfolio online between Skillshare and Udemy, possibly LinkedIn Learning, that federal contractor who's going to decide whether to give you the bid or not, often in the six figures area, they can actually see your work and they can go through your courses. And that can be a deciding factor in whether or not you get the bid or another company gets the federal bid. So it expands your authority and expertise. It also points to specific topics from which to build more extensive courses and programs. So this is something I've learned over time, but I wish somebody had told me before I started creating these courses. Save your best course concept, save your most exclusive, life-transforming course content for a private course that you're going to deliver through something like Thinkific or Teachable. Like, you've got to decide early on in this what courses are suitable for Skillshare and Udemy, where Skillshare and Udemy have the control essentially, and what courses that you want to keep for yourself that are only available on your website or through you. And you want to build a funnel where any of the courses you're putting on Skillshare and Udemy, they lead people to your website, and then that website leads them to your more exclusive, higher end course offering. So don't put all of your juicy course content on Skillshare and Udemy, because then that gives them the control over it. Keep the juicy course content for yourself, but decide how you're going to leverage whatever you put on Skillshare and Udemy to lead people to your website and eventually to the more expensive course that only can be purchased through you directly. So that gives you a good feel of what works in the market. And then number 5, online courses allow you to grow your brand. That's super important. So 5 considerations for building online courses. And I think this applies to books too. So I always start with the time investment. I use a free app called Toggle, which is Toggl. I highly recommend it. Every time I coach women entrepreneurs, the first thing I make them do, and yes, I make them do this, is I make them start a Toggle account. I make them start toggling their time, because if you don't know where you're spending your time, you have no idea where you're spending your life. And you have no reason why your business is or is not working, because you got to know what you're putting your time into. So the first thing you've got to consider with building online courses, it is time intensive. 40 hours to build a 5-hour course. Now, my goal is to build 52 courses, and I'm on number 20, which I'll be shooting this weekend. That's a lot of time when each course takes 40 hours. So how much time do you have to build online courses? How much time do you have to write books and get them on Audible? How are you going to divide that time? So the time investment is consideration number 1. Number 2, your instructional design skills. Now, I'm an instructional designer by background. That saves me a lot of time. If I were not an instructional designer, that 40 hours that it takes me would probably take me closer to 60 or 70. So really assess, are you going to outsource some of the instructional design? Are you going to pay somebody to do it? There are lots of freelance places where you can hire IDs to do things. Are you going to do it yourself? Do you need to brush up on some skills related to adult learning theory and instructional design? Again, you've got to assess, do you have the instructional design skills to build online courses, or can you outsource it and pay somebody to do those pieces for you and with you? Number 3, your course publishing schedule. Again, going back to project management, how many courses do you want to produce in a given year? And what are your revenue goals around that? I can tell you with 19 courses, to get to the revenue goal that I have for both Skillshare and Udemy, and with what I've seen my mentors do in terms of where they currently are after 5 years on the platform, I got to get to 52 courses to see that number. So I already know that it's going to be the next 2 years getting from shooting course 20 this weekend to getting all the way to 52, given that I'm also still doing a self-publishing schedule and bringing 7 to 10 new books each year to the table to also get them to 52 books in the next 2 to 3 years. So you need your course publishing schedule. Fourth thing, what are you going to outsource? So again, some people outsource the video production. So they bring a video crew, they have their ring light, they have the video crew shoot it, then they hire a post-production person. Can you afford that? Is that financially feasible? If it's not, do you know how to do that yourself? Can you learn how to do those things yourself? You can use your phone to shoot courses. It doesn't have to be a fancy Canon camera. It's helpful if it is a fancy Canon camera, but it doesn't have to be. So what are you outsourcing in this project versus what are you self-managing? And then number 5, how deep your teaching will go for other people's platforms versus your own. One of the biggest pieces of feedback that I've received is Skillshare and Udemy, no different than Facebook and all of social, they can change their algorithms, their payment structures, their price. They can change any of the details because they're hosting your content, and you really have no say when those things change. So yes, you want to have a revenue stream with big things like Udemy and Skillshare, but you've also got to decide at what point do I start putting my future courses on my website only? At what point, what courses do I only sell through me versus what I sell through Udemy and Skillshare? Because yes, you can earn great revenue from those places, but you don't have all the control. And eventually the goal should be to have as much creative control and financial control over the courses you build as you possibly can have, which means you've got to decide early on, what kinds of things will you teach for those platforms and what kinds of things will you teach and keep on your personal website and on your personal platforms. So final thought, I love this quote. It always seems impossible until it's done. So I say, if you're looking at all this, you're like, oh my goodness, this takes so much time. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. And you know what? It always seems impossible until it's actually done. So focus on the doing it and just trust the process and know it's going to be years. And before you know it, 3 to 5 years will pass and you'll be just, I call it mailbox money. You'll be getting money in your sleep from things you had to hustle really hard to do 3 to 5 years ago. So there is the content. Let me see, Michelle, if I can stop sharing and then come on and answer questions. Woo!
Woo, girl. Yes, that was a lot in a great way. What I appreciated was that you were so honest about what it takes, right? Because I think we have gotten caught up in this culture of you're going to have $1 million
launch
and just do the PLC method and do your 4 pre-recorded videos and you'll have 6 figures. Come on now, stop playing with me, right? But we buy into that because we see the receipts, right? They show us their Stripe accounts, but the reality is they're unicorns. If it's happened, it happened years ago as well, right? The playing field has changed since when you and I first started writing and doing e-commerce work. When I wrote my first book in 2011, self-publishing was still getting that stigma, right? There was still that negative stigma attached to not having an official agent. And now everybody is at least trying to self-publish. So I appreciate that you're bringing us down to reality and saying, look, it can be done. Look, you can do it, but this is what it really takes. So thank you. I just kept thinking DJ Khaled, major key alert, major key alert. I was taking notes like crazy. So folks who are watching, we appreciate you watching. Please drop your questions. I know Karen said, I am ready for the nuggets. So if you have questions, Karen Proctor, thank you. Let us know if you have any questions. I have questions, but if y'all don't, I'm going to take notes. First thing I also want to share is that as Kassandra was talking, that yes, she does have her instructional design background. Also, you can work with Mimi, who was on earlier. Mimi Peace is a learning experience designer. She's helped me with my presentations and courses that we're building out. And so I am all about like hiring my challenges. I'm not going to call them weaknesses, just where I'm not a 9 or 8, I'm going to hire anything less than that if I have the ability to. Right. And so definitely reach out to Mimi if that's something that you feel like you need instructional design. Kassandra wears many, many hats. So I would also reach out to Kassandra as well. That Toggle app, TOGGL, time tracking. Thank you for that.
Yeah, it's a game changer. It's a game changer.
It really is, because so often we're just doing so many things and often we're multitasking. Do you find that it helps you stay on one task because you know you're timing yourself?
Yes, and what I find so helpful is every week you can look at your reports for that week and you can see a pie chart that shows you where the percentage of your time has been spent. And for all of the planners out there in the world, so often they'll see that they're spending most of their week planning and not doing daily massive action.
Oh,
So it helps you fix that.
Oh, that's a big one. That is a really big one. One of the things that I love that you said, because we've both had podcasts, we've both written books. I've definitely not written. I'm like 28 behind you. But what I love about content creation, and tell me your thoughts on this, is that you really do build a level of familiarity. It is intimate. When I used to teach on podcasting, definitely would talk about the difference between being in someone's ears, right? So when you're doing course creation, now you're video, right? So it's the written word, the storytelling brings people in, the spoken word, they hear your voice, the video, they see your face, hear your voice and intonations, and they're like, oh, I like her, right? I want to know more. I want to binge. How have you been able, or what do you find when in each of these different media, right, that you're using in terms of the intimacy level and where that brings people in your funnel? Do they spend more or less? What do you think based on how you're connecting with them?
People love Audible. Let me just start there.
I am not a book fanatic. I can't lie.
So do not publish a book and then sleep on getting the Audible version. And I am an Audible snob, so I will not download an Audible that is not narrated by the author.
Oh, that's interesting. Because sometimes I'm like, oh, that author sucks. Oh my God.
I want to hear the author's voice because they know what they meant. They know how they felt in the moment they wrote that word. And so it sounds differently. So I would say as an author, you should narrate your Audible. If you need to do voiceover training before to do that well, then do that, because Audible is a game changer, both from a revenue standpoint, but also an intimacy standpoint. People like to listen to Audible more so than opening up their iPad or getting a paperback copy. Now, I will also tell you, in my book formats, Audible does the best revenue-wise, and then paperback does second best.
Right.
So people still like the actual book in their hands. But for intimacy, people want to hear the words coming out of your mouth.
It's very true. And I am a person who actually buys Audible books. And if I love it, I then buy the hardback or the paperback so that I can have it, tab it up. I have listened to books and read them. So it doesn't cut into your revenue. If anybody is thinking, oh, I'm only going to be a purist and have one format of my book, believe it or not, depending on how people engage with you, they will buy the same words in different formats.
And then they'll buy it for their friends. They'll buy the paperback for their friends.
True. Very true.
So I think that's super important. The other piece is, if you're going to write a number of books and you already know that you want this to be a solid revenue stream, the one thing I've learned over time is, and some of the best-selling authors, I won't name any names, they don't get this yet, tell different life stories in your nonfiction books. There's nothing more annoying than I read one book by a self-help author, and they tell the same life stories in 6 of their books.
Right.
People want to have the full landscape of your life, not just a few select pieces that fit a TED Talk. So make sure every book has different stories in it.
Exactly. I'm so glad you said that, because that was the other piece I was going to ask you is how do you keep your origin story across that many books? How are you telling it differently, keeping it fresh, making sure people, I've worked on political campaigns, right? And they tell the same stump speech, but they have to, right? We get it because they're like, I'm touching new people constantly. But when you are building an audience of people who know you, Kassandra and I were talking about things we know about each other because of social media or other ways that that information was shared. So they're going to want the new thing, right? Not to hear about the same thing over and over. And that also builds credibility and shows how full and rich you are as a person and relatable.
Absolutely. And I'd say that's where the book outline becomes so important. It's important to write a thorough book outline for every book and to identify in the book outline the specific chapters where you're going to cover certain stories and identify what those stories are. So 10 books down the road, if you're like, did I tell that story? You just go to the book outline and you figure out if you did tell that story.
So I've been muting my mic a little bit because we are a working podcast studio, co-working space. So I'm recording out here. My clients are in there recording their regular scheduled podcast, which I love. Talk to us a little bit about how do we really know whether we have a hobby or a business? A lot of people love the writing. You love the writing. I love the marketing. Right. I have the stories. I want to tell the stories. When we wrote the first book, we actually recorded our voices, sent them out for transcription, and then I edited the transcripts. That was our first book, right? It was a conversation. And so talk to us a bit about sort of that hobby distinction versus, because if it's about the book, for me, it's going to be a hobby. But if it's about the marketing, it's going to be about sales.
Exactly. So the distinction is, so first question I always like to work with entrepreneurs through is, are you wanting to write one book because there's one message you want to share, but you have no interest in writing 9 other books connected to that core message? If that's what you want to do, then that's a hobby. It could be a bestseller if you really get a solid marketing team behind it and you know how to do the bestseller route. But that's not going to create $10,000 a month in one revenue stream for you for the next 10 years. If what you actually want is, I want to write a book so I can get on the Today Show, I can get on Good Morning America, I can become a contributor to whoever's network on a regular basis, they're not going to like just one book. They're going to want to see 3, 5, 7, 10. And then if on top of that, you're like, well, I also want to make 5,000 or 10,000 a month from this alone. Now we're talking 20 plus books. So it all depends on what the business goals are. If it is for PR and getting onto national television, 3 to 7 books will do it. If it's, I want thousands of dollars a month in revenue, now we're like 3 years worth of 20 plus books.
You know, people are hearing these numbers. Anybody else? I mean, y'all drop your comments. I see y'all watching, y'all lurking. How do y'all feel about these numbers? Because so I'm like, I ain't writing 50 books. I got maybe 1, 2 more books left in me.
Well, and here's what's funny. Let's put it in proper perspective, because so many of my entrepreneur friends, they choose different routes, right? They say, I'm going to build a solid YouTube channel. I'm going to generate YouTube ad money every single month. Well, but what the teachers and the gurus don't tell you about YouTube is you're going to spend 10 to 20 hours learning the process of how that works on the back end and the data analytics. Then you're going to spend 40 hours a week for 6 months producing, scripting, post-producing all the videos to launch the YouTube channel in 6 months. And then you're going to market the hell out of it for 40 hours a week for the next 6 months to a year before you have the kind of ad revenue you thought you'd get in 3 months.
Look, let me tell you, this is a fact. I know some of you are familiar with the Side Hustle Pro podcast by Nikhila Matthews. She's awesome. I followed her for years and years. She took her podcast into the stratosphere, interviewed Janice Bryant Halroyd, had different events, etc. Right? This is not a plug for her. She doesn't pay me for this. But what I'm about to say is, after she had her baby recently in the last year or so, she decided she wanted to launch a natural hair YouTube channel. And she's talking about that process, and it is hard. So it's a matter of pick your heart, right? So Kassandra is talking to us today about books, but exactly what she said is true. If you want to build up a following, you will create content, whatever that platform is where you're creating that content. It's going to take time. It's going to take devotion. It is going to take toggle to track how much time you're spending. Right, and focus and intentionality, and I really love that about Cassandra, is that she's extremely intentional, and then she works it out. I have followed her body goals. I have followed her on fear. I have purchased books just because her name was on it. I watched her just blossom, and it's amazing. One of the things that you talked about with regarding to having a series, I think, talk to us a bit about the benefit with Amazon when you have more than one book, when it's like that little carousel that goes along beneath, right? Talk to us about that add to cart opportunity when you have multiple books.
Yes. So a couple of things. You want to build up your Amazon author profile. So you want to develop a really solid Amazon author profile and start promoting early on, even before your second book, because you need the first book to do the profile, and have people follow you on it. Because when they follow you on your Amazon author profile, every time you publish a new book, even as a pre-order, Amazon is going to notify that person via email that you have a new book out. So Amazon, if you work it correctly, will market your books for free. Meaning, if I want to write, let's say I'm a coach and I'm a coach about getting into a PhD program. So I'm a PhD coach. I need to write 3 to 10 books on how to get into a PhD program, how to handle a PhD program, one problem solved per book for 7 to 10 books. And then in each of those books, 2 to 5 times, I need to mention another book that I've written. And what happens is, number one, somebody reads your first book and then they get your second book because you talked about in your first book, and then it keeps going for all the books. And then what also happens is, once they purchase your first book, the other 7, Amazon at the bottom of the carousel starts to put, if you like this book, then you like that one, you like that one, you like that one. And that's all free. You're not paying Amazon to do that. It's amazing.
And just to cement this a bit, I'm going to tell you straight up, 2 people who do this so well: Jen Sincero with her Badass series, right? And Mike McAllowitz, who has a new book coming out in a couple of weeks, right? These are folks who, number one, I've purchased their Audibles and their hardback books, but they always refer back to the other book they've written when they are writing the next book. Right. And so take these nuggets, y'all. Karen said she's here for the nuggets. These are nuggets because Amazon has mastered marketing and sales. And so they can use their juggernaut status to market and sell your books. You're going to want to be right there front and center to take advantage of them. Can you talk about accountability buddies, community, writing partners? I know you're in Wyoming, but you can connect with people online. What are your thoughts? Have you have any nuggets or pros and cons to having writing groups, writing partners, etc.?
So this is not going to be a popular concept, but let me tell you how I feel about that. You never want to be in a writing group of similar level writers, right? Because we level up to the standard that's set by the majority in the group. So if you're a brand new writer and you're like, let me join this writing group of brand new writers and y'all will stay at the same level. You need to be in a group of writers who are prolific. They are just like, it is their standard to knock stuff out. They know strategies to market because they've been doing this for 10 years that you have no idea about. You need to be in writing groups and with accountability partners. It's no different than fitness. I always say this. The worst thing in fitness is if you are starting a weight loss journey, and I used to be a personal trainer, you're starting a weight loss journey and you want to be an accountability partner with somebody who was eating Twinkies yesterday. So both of y'all at the same level. And you really think you're going to hold each other? No. You find the fittest CrossFit doing person whose standard is, I don't eat that. Like they don't even understand that. And you partner with them. They will level you up. The human mind will always level up to whatever room it is in. You need to not be the smartest person in the room.
That is my mantra. I hate being the smartest person in the room. And that's not cocky to say. The reality is we are all really smart in certain things. And when you find yourself in rooms where you're the smartest person in the room a lot, you need new rooms, period.
Yes.
Ego be damned. You need new rooms because you're not going to level up at all, which is why I brought Kassandra to this room. I am definitely not the smartest person in this room, and I'm loving it. All right, so I only have one more question. So folks who are watching, I know y'all are consuming. If you have questions, I'm telling you, now is the time to ask, because I'm damn sure asking mine. Let me see. I literally was taking crazy. You can't even see it. It can't even say it that well. But I was taking crazy notes. So the New York bestseller. Okay. All right. I love it. You're on an unpopular opinion streak. Let's end on this one if no one has any other questions. All right. You busted a myth about the New York Times bestseller list, right? And money. Can you repeat that for the folks in the back, the folks who are just joining us, the folks who weren't here at the beginning of the conversation? Because I think there's something to be said about chasing that bestseller status.
Yeah. So here's the thing. It is a noble goal to want to be on that New York bestsellers list, but the New York bestsellers list does not translate to making millions of dollars on your book. And in fact, if you really look at the back end of how you get on the New York bestsellers list, a lot of that, I'm not going to call any names out, but you and I both know somebody who made the New York Times bestsellers list. They buy their way there. They buy their book. They buy it for all their friends. They buy it for everybody in their, they buy their way to the New York Times bestsellers list so they can say they were a New York Times bestseller. So then they can be on the Today Show and Good Morning America. Now, if your goal is I want to have that title on my resume so I can do Good Morning America, well, fine, do all that. But if you want to be making $30,000 a month, that route is not taking you to $30,000 a month. Different paths.
Thank you, Kassandra. So I have it going across the bottom where folks can connect with you on IG and Facebook. And I know you're also at KassandraVaughn.com as well, which I shared throughout your presentation. Thank you so much. This was incredible. I really appreciate all the value that you brought to us today. This is another episode, y'all, where you're going to want to watch the replay, because whether you're looking at online marketing, Skillshare, Udemy, I mean, there's a lot there. There's a lot to unpack. And as opposed to getting overwhelmed, the goal of these opportunities on the Unchambered meetings is to give you a reference. That's why we have the library, so that you can study and come back to it and refer back. And Kassandra, you are clutch at that. Please let folks know, what are some ways that they could actually work with you, support you? What do you prefer people do in terms of connecting with you?
Absolutely. I have a number of coaching programs that are available through my website, Kassandravaughn.com. So you can go to Kassandravaughn.com, click on programs. It will bring you to a number of coaching programs. Also, be sure to find me on Skillshare and Udemy. If you just look up Kassandra Vaughn, it will take you to both my Skillshare and my Udemy profile. Follow me on there. So every time a new course, like this weekend, I'm recording a course on how to create and deliver a powerful presentation. So you will find out the latest that I'm producing in terms of courses. And then, of course, if you want to see all 29 books, plus the one that's coming out in a couple weeks, you can certainly go to overcomingfearbooks.com. It will take you right to my Amazon author profile.
And two things. Clearly, Kassandra knows how to give a powerful presentation. But let me tell you, the receipts on this tonight, us coming together, because I am what's the word when you sign up for something? I follow her on Skillshare. Yeah. Menopause brain. I forget words. Because I follow Kassandra on Skillshare. I got an email saying, Kassandra has this new course on Skillshare. I was like, oh my God, she has to come teach us about Skillshare. This is so perfect. Yep. So again, these are ways to, and my relationship strategist marketing brain is going to say, you want to stay top of mind, and you want to give people opportunities to hire you. You want to give people opportunities to share their platforms with you. And by making sure that you have this really well well-rounded, crafted, intentional program around your books and your brand are ways to ensure that you get to the sales, right?
Well,
That
and
is the key.
the other thing I would say, Michelle, is if you are someone who is publishing a book or you're publishing a course, I send out a daily dose of inspiration email to my email list every single day. And I love to promote other people who are teaching things that I don't teach, who are reaching people that I know are on my email list, but I'm not focused on reaching with my content. So also send me messages to share what you're doing so I can help share that with my tribe.
Yes, I love that. Well, y'all know we all, which way do I point my finger? This is mirror. Let me tell you, it's always a good time at the Unchamber. Kassandra, Vaughn, thank you so much for being here. You guys, I will see you next month, second Wednesdays of the month. October is our next meeting, 1 p.m., 6 p.m. If you are not watching this on the Unchamber community, that means you're not a member of our premium community. That means that this goes away tonight and you won't be able to refer back to it. You do have to join to have lifetime access to our programming. Thank you, Kassandra, Vaughn. Thank you all for watching. I hope you got the nuggets that you needed and wanted. I sure did. All right. Talk to y'all later.
Bye, everybody.